Good morning. I hope everyone is able to celebrate Memorial Day over the weekend. And I had to stop in Holton and in Lawrence at a couple cemeteries with our veterans. And if you did not, I hope that everyone will take time to be thankful for our great country and to thank a veteran if you see one.
Absolutely. Always a wonderful opportunity to memorialize everyone who gave the ultimate sacrifice to our country. Lots going on here, and you guys staying busy here. It seems like even over the holiday weekend. I understand President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy reached a tentative deal to avoid the federal default while limiting government spending. So details came out yesterday on the deal. What's the good and what's the not so good in your opinion?
Yeah, well, it's pretty mixed. First off, it's disappointing to me that we're even in this spot. Right. You know, the president waited almost 100 days to negotiate it and have a conference about this. That said, we are where we are. The Limit Save Grow Act that passed about a month ago had a lot of really good things in it. It wasn't perfect either. This now comes before us. The good things is this does extend the debt limit. It does, for my view, rein in spending. It limits top-line federal spending at 1% growth for the next 6 years. It sweeps unspent COVID money. It's a step in the direction of getting our finances in order. At the same time, in my view, it does authorize the spending of almost 30, gets our debt limit up to $34 trillion and falls short some other ways as well. So it's a little bit mixed, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and one thing I noted that when I was looking at it here last night is that it basically gets us through the presidential election in 2024. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing necessarily here, but do you think we'll be coming back and having this conversation again in 2 years?
Well, I mean, likely. It really depends on, it's being said this is kind of step one in getting our fiscal house in order. The question, the answer to it, if we're back here in a couple of years, really depends on, do we take as a nation steps 2, 3, 4, and 5, and what does that look like? I do support the notion of extending for about a year, and we need to look at all this again because we cannot continue to spend money like this. We're $31.4 trillion in debt. It looks like, based on projections, that January 1, 2025, so actual election, will be $34 trillion in debt. We cannot continue to spend money like this and not think that we're going to have fiscal consequences for our nation here in the years to come.
And I don't think any Republicans or Democrats expected to get everything they wanted here. That's kind of how these deals work. But how can we expect you'll be voting, and when do we expect the vote to occur?
Well, the vote will be tomorrow night, and I'm still looking at it. So we will see. Again, I'm waiting. There's some good things in here. There's a lot of bad things. A lot of things I'm a lot of concern about as well. We'll have multiple meetings. We'll fly back to D.C. today, and we'll have multiple meetings over the next couple of days as we really talk about this. And it's not just this legislation, but also what are our bigger plans to rein in spending. And so I will we'll know here over the next couple of days.
Okay, very good. Well, I know there's been some other things going on here. A big win, I know, for a lot of conservatives and also farmers. That was the Supreme Court ruling last week on the Waters of the U.S. rule, issuing an opinion that the waters can be regulated under the Clean Water Act if they have a continuous surface connection to larger regulated bodies of water. What was your thinking about the Supreme Court decision last week?
There's some of the best news out of Washington in a long, long time. And for those that haven't followed this, so WOTUS, or Waters of the U.S., it's a body of regulation that's been put out by the Biden administration that would basically give the federal government jurisdictions over farm ponds, drainage ditches, far beyond what the purview of the federal government ought to be doing. They're doing it under the auspice of the Clean Water Act, and everybody's for clean water, right? But this is beyond what the federal government should have jurisdiction in. And so the Supreme Court, this has been challenged in court. The Supreme Court last week voted 9-0 to strike down the regulation. And so I would say it was a good day for our American farmers, for people who love freedom, and a bad day for the growth of government. So all in all, it was good. And it was great that it was unanimous. It was 9-0 ruling as well.
All right. Well, of course, that coming in here, and then, of course, you introduced some legislation, I know yourself, last week, along with the representative from Iowa.
Yeah, we led the effort on this. So So the Public Health Service Act from 1970 establishes Title 10. We're kind of way in the weeds, but the Biden administration is using that to set up a hotline for people to call in that are seeking abortion. And I'm pro-life, a lot of concerns about that. But we got to realize that it's been the law of the land for decades that whether someone's pro-life or not, we would not use taxpayer funds for abortions. And so to see this come out of the Biden administration, so I sent a letter to the president signed on by dozens of members, also introduced legislation last week, also co-sponsored by dozens of members, that would eliminate the funding of this hotline. You know, the federal government should not be doing this. There's no business doing this and breaks the Hyde Amendment, which is laws in place that prevent taxpayer funding of abortion. So we're fighting that fight, and we'll see what happens here over the next few days and weeks.
It's an interesting, interesting bill here, in the fact that taxpayer dollars, and I could see how both sides of this argument here. There's probably plenty of nonprofit organizations that could step up and assist folks who are pondering this decision.
Well, yeah, people have certain rights in this country, but that said, federal taxpayer dollars should not be spent for abortion. And that's been the law of the land, again, for decades. President Biden, when he was in the Senate, supported many, many times to hold these financial restrictions. It's called the Hyde Amendment, is what it is. So it's really disappointing to see the administration's actions, but that's why we are pushing back as forcefully as we are to really call them to task and prevent this from happening.
Well, as we get past this week here, we'll of course have the vote on the debt ceiling issue, and then I would imagine after that we're going to be really tackling Farm Bill next. Is that about right?
Well, and then there's appropriations bills as well, and so there are 12 separate appropriations bills for every department. So, Department of Homeland Security, Judiciary, all the different departments have their appropriations bills, so they'll come to the floor this summer. Yeah, and as will the Farm Bill. There's also the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has to be reauthorized every 5 years. That's this year as well. So it's shaping up for a really busy summer. But we've been up to eyeballs. I've been working very hard getting this Farm Bill right to make sure it works for our producers in Kansas. Currently, the existing Farm Bill expires September 30th. It's been in a lot of work in committee, more work to come as that comes to the floor. It looks like later this summer.
And if anybody has any concerns and maybe they want to share with you about the Farm Bill, is there listening tours still happening, or is there an email?
Yeah, but we've done a bunch. We have done a bunch of listening tours. We had the chairman of the House Ag Committee in Kansas over in Gypsum here about a month ago. Had some stops in Manhattan as well. But anyone they can just reach out to our office, man.house.gov, or call. We have our Manhattan office. Call our DC or Dodge City office as well, and we are certainly taking input from anyone and everyone that has thoughts and ideas on how we make sure we get this farm policy right here for rural America and for Kansas moving forward.
All right. Well, lots of good stuff here. Anything else you want to highlight before we wrap things up?
I don't believe so. Just, we live in such a great country. We've got to keep working hard to make sure America stays great. And again, to all our veterans that are listening, thank you for your service to the country. And I want to remind everyone we've got to continue to express appreciation to and be thanking our veterans for the service, the service these brave men and women have done so that we all get to live in the free country that we get to live in. So thanks for having me on this morning, guys. Really appreciate it.
Again, our thanks to Congressman Tracy Mann on the KMAN Morning News here.